Let's talk Africa, the Africanness of Africa, the beauty, its people, our peculiarities. This is Unzipped Stories. I am DS Bello.
I spoke of Mansa Musa earlier. These people basically made us who we are today. It's very important to share these types of things and let people know how powerful and rich our history is.
Hello, my lovelies. Hi. Okay. My name is Jennifer, and I'll be unzipping this week's episode. Now imagine a childhood moving between the lands of Africa, then taking a turn into the Western wilderness. Come on, I don't mean an actual wilderness, okay? But what do you call it when people, even in this present age, know nothing about Africa? Wild, huh? Okay. Well, today's episode is about Asha Kahiya, a storyteller whose journey began between Zambia and Zimbabwe, then crossed oceans to Canada. Through his work, Asha is narrating the untold stories of Africa, stories that history almost lost. But this wasn't always his part. Asha started in the corporate world. So settle in and let's begin.
The 9-to-5 life was not for me. So when I was young, when I was 17 years old, I made the decision to go to university to study business. A lot of my friends at that time were all going to university, and we knew this was the right thing to do at the time. Got my degree, and the next step after that was going into the working world. So got a few jobs in accounting, and I really didn't enjoy them at all. I kept lying to myself saying like, hey, stick it out. You're just a junior. And then once you become a senior and you're going to enjoy it more and the work's going to get better and blah, 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 blah. And then I was just like, no, I'm still not really enjoying it that much. But I didn't really have another option.
Asha recalled his professor mentioned how dynamic this generation is. There's always room for change. So, he took up an opportunity to teach abroad in South Korea, which opened him to a world of storytelling.
I was learning about different cultures, I was learning about different people, and I was telling people about Canada and telling people about Africa, mostly about Africa because when you're a Black person living in an Asian country, they don't look at you as a Canadian, they look at you as an African. So I mostly had to answer a lot of questions about Africa. And so I thought to myself, like, wait, why don't I just educate the world and learn as I go as well? Because I'm not an expert in African history, but I am somebody that is interested in African history and do my own research and do these storytellings and learn as I go. So that was kind of how the story, The Untold Tales of Africa, came about. That's basically how I started to leave the 9-to-5 life behind.
Like many Africans, Asha has experienced the world beyond the continent. Living in Asia helped in shaping his newly found art of telling the untold tales of Africa.
I noticed most people on their phones were looking at, digital art and kind of like a anime style, and they're all consuming this type of media. And it's something that I'd never seen, or at least wasn't popular in Canada. And so one of the biggest YouTubers that I saw in Asia, his name is Kento Bento. He was telling stories about Asia that were extraordinary. And he was a big influence for me because I was just like, whoa, I'd never heard any of these stories before. This is pretty cool. And then obviously the light bulb moment came in my head being like, wow, I should do the same thing, but for Africa, because clearly, like I'd mentioned before, there was a knowledge gap in terms of what Asians and even North Americans knew about the African continent. So that's what sparked my idea to do what it is that I'm doing today.
And then creating the stories takes a team. Asha collaborates closely with a group of animators in Uganda to bring his narratives to life.
A lot of African stories tend to lack visual evidence. So I spoke of Mansa Musa earlier, but there's not a lot of pictures of what he looked like, but he was a real figure that existed in African history. So I can lean on my animators to draw a picture of him and let me know what he could have looked like and help put a story together through animation and through illustrations and share it with the world. Have a Zambian voice like mine narrating the story, and then have their Ugandan art put together to bring the story to life. So I'm very appreciative of what they do.
His latest project is a powerful example of African stories told by Africans for Africans. Picture this: a warrior from Africa centuries ago who rises to fame in feudal Japan.
Yasuke's story is very, very inspiring. Even though it's to do with slavery, it shows how somebody was able to break free of slavery and end up in a country like Japan and then become part of the noble people, the kingdom, and fight in their wars and fight for territory and gain respect from the locals in the 1500s, which you can imagine what Japan was like during that time.
Guess what?
I do believe Yasuke's story is gaining a lot of steam in the media. There's a video game, and Assassin's Creed is the name of the series. So Assassin's Creed is doing a video game on Yasuke, and it's coming out in 2025. And I hear rumors that there might be a movie being made soon on Yasuke. So I'm happy that the movie is definitely getting the deserved attention.
Drum rolls! Storytelling is more than words. It's a catalyst for change, and it sure comes with its rewards.
If you think about it from an African perspective, if we are able to empower the stories of Africans or our history or people present day that are doing things, you can imagine the effect that it will have this generation and generations to come in the future. So I do think storytelling is a very, 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 very powerful tool. A lot of people, when they see my stories or my videos, they say, wow, I had no idea about this. Or, oh, I didn't know about the Black Samurai, Yasuke. I didn't know about this. These are the types of reactions that I receive every time I find some of these nuggets of stories, which bring me satisfaction to know that the work that I'm doing is definitely fruitful. And it does motivate me and inspire me to continue doing what I'm doing.
Asha's on a mission to focus on African history, drama, inspiration, and shifts the negative perspective of the continent.
Due to the negative stereotypes that we hear about Africans, it's like, oh, they're poor, they're uneducated, they don't know any better, and famine and all these different things. If you really, really, really dive deep into our history, you'll find that there was a lot of intellectual people. There was a lot of innovation that was happening. There was a lot of kingdoms, there was a lot of powerful men, powerful women ruling different parts of the continent and trading with the world, their resources. And it's very important to share these types of things and let people know how powerful and rich our history is, and to learn about where it is that we come from. And these people basically made us who we are today. Yes, these kingdoms and these things don't exist anymore, but it's still a part of our history, and I do think the more educated we become, the better we understand us as people, as Africans, I should say.
And there you have it. A journey not just across continents, but through diverse untold stories. Thank you all for listening, and thanks to Asha for joining the community change makers. Until next time, remember, Africa's stories are Africa's strength.
This is Unzipped Stories. I am DS Bello.